Thank you, Presiding Officer. Also, there has been a vast amount of misinformation about this Act, and that's why I wanted to speak today. At the outset, I'd like to put on record... Pardon? Okay.
Russell Finlay.
Thank you. We've heard a lot about misinformation, but I'd like to ask the member if he can point to one specific example of misinformation from members in this chamber.
Stuart McMillan.
So I've really just started my speech, so I'll continue and then see if it answers Mr Russell's question. At the outset, I'd like to put on my record my disappointment at the way that the legislation has been conveyed publicly. Now, some media outlets have sadly helped to peddle the narrative that the Hate Crime Act is about limiting or removing free speech. This could not be further from the truth. Fundamentally, hate crime is behaviour that is both criminal and rooted in prejudice, and it can be verbal, physical, online or in person. And the Hate Crime Act, therefore, aims to tackle the harm caused by hatred and prejudice and provide greater protections for victims and communities. The legislation does not, and I repeat, does not prevent people from expressing controversial, challenging or offensive views, nor does it seek to stifle criticism or rigorous debate in any way. The right to freedom of expression is specifically built into the Act. Now, Presiding Officer, it is the height of hypocrisy that the Conservatives are asking this Parliament to repeal this Act, citing free speech limitations, when their Westminster colleagues are campaigning for the UK to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, Audrey Nicholl, in her contribution earlier, spoke about the consequences of the repeal of this Act. She spoke about them very eloquently.
Pauline McNeill.
So, thank you. I quite agree with the member. The tension behind the Act was that, importantly, it was amended as such so that people could express their views, even if they were insulting or offensive. But I just wondered if the member has given thought to what Murdo Fraser said. If there's a high bar for criminality, why are we experiencing these issues where people are being reported to the police for something which should be nowhere near a police station?
Stuart McMillan.
I think there was a comment from one of my colleagues earlier. I know Pauline McNeill posed that question with a genuine question. One of my colleagues earlier on spoke about some of the actors out there in society who certainly do not want this Act to succeed. There are bad actors out there in our society, sadly, and we have to accept that there are. Not everyone, but there are. And certainly, in my opinion, some of those bad actors will also have had an effect upon what's happened in the media over the last couple of weeks. Now, I come back to the point regarding the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, this is despite the UK helping draft the ECHR and being one of the first states to ratify it in 1951. Now, this is important because the ECHR offers significant protections on the right to life, liberty, a fair trial, freedom from discrimination, freedom of assembly and freedom of expression, amongst other legal safeguards. But despite some of the grandstanding by the Prime Minister, the UK remains a participating member of the Convention, the European Court of Human Rights and also the Council of Europe. Saying also where the Conservative UK government seeks to abandon human rights, this SNP Scottish Government seeks to further enshrine them in our proposed Human Rights Bill. Now, another crucial point that's been lost in some of the public discourse is that the Scottish Act mirrors legislation in England and Wales. But you wouldn't believe that to be the case if you were to read some of the criticisms the law has attracted online. Now, this is an inconvenient truth for those who do not support this government, devolution or this Parliament. Now, the talking down of this Parliament continually and what it does has went into hyperdrive in recent years. And the criticism of this Act is just the current manifestation of those actions. Now, and for clarity, I've already taken two. The new offences for threatening or abusive behaviour which is intended to stir up hatred based on prejudice towards characteristics, including age, disability, religion, sexual orientation and transgender identity, and also variations in sex characteristics, reflects the law in England and Wales which recognises 5 types of hate crime based on race, religion, disability, sexual orientation and transgender identity. Now, any crime in England and Wales can therefore be prosecuted as a hate crime if the offender has either, first of all, demonstrated hostility based on these characteristics or been motivated by hostility based on these traits. Presiding Officer, as you know, and the Chamber should know, the stirring up of racial hatred has also been on the statute books in Scotland since 1986. And therefore, the stirring up of hatred provisions in the Hate Crime Act are not new. And the new law actually implements a higher threshold for criminality than the long-standing stirring up of racial hatred offence. Presiding Officer, as politicians, I'm sure we all recognise that hate crime doesn't just take place online. And we all sadly know of colleagues in this chamber who have experienced threats. Sometimes these threats have extended to our staff, which has been the case recently in my office. And I mention this as a reminder to all MSPs of the role that we play in informing the public about legislation passed in this Parliament. There's a simple law of physics. With every action, there is a reaction. Now, whether intentional or not, misleading people is counterproductive and in some instances can be dangerous. Now, therefore, I do want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for her statement yesterday, although sadly it had to be made. But clearly, some lessons do have to be learned about how legislation is communicated to the public. But fundamentally, we as legislators must consider our language and also our actions. Politics can be a robust business, and that's healthy in any democracy. But what we should not be doing, however, is to allow our criticism to cloud debate with misinformation, as I have regrettably found to be the case on too many occasions when discussing this Act. Thank you.